مردم شریف ایران، من شهریار افشار هستم، میزبان شما در Politics 365. امروز یک صاحب نظر خیلی فعال در زمینه قوانین و موضوع سیاسی آمریکا به برنامه پیوسته، آقای چی کمندوری. ایشونو در چندین شبکه‌های مختلف، پروگرام‌های مختلف دنیا دیدین، از CNN، CNBC، همه این کانال‌ها بودن ایشون و هر موقع یه موضوع سیاسی مخصوصا در مورد انتخابات رئیس جمهوری پیش میاد، خیلی از این دفتر خبری به ایشون مراجعه میکنن. بقیه برنامه به انگلیسی تهیه شده و اصل قضیه ما، صحبت ما امروز در مورد انتخابات رئیس جمهوری آمریکاست بین آقای ترامپ و آقای بایدن. Shay, thank you so much for joining us. So glad you could come with us and help us. Thank you for help us explain American politics to our Iranian audience. You know, we watch with great anticipation, and of course, anything that has to do with, you know, things that affect any American's rights or lives is of interest to our Iranian American community. But of course, whether Biden gets in and, you know, whatever his foreign policy is going to be in a Biden 2.0, what will that look like? And if Trump gets in, you know, what will that look like? Because he's been fairly unpredictable. So I really would love your kind of your crystal ball looking into the future as to this election. Who do you have as the prospective winner, and how do you see this campaign in the next 4 months unfolding?
Yeah, so let me put my cards on the table. I am a Democratic strategist. I'm a Democrat. I worked for Democrats. I worked for Barack Obama. I worked for Hillary Clinton. I worked for John Kerry. I worked at the DNC. So I have a strong Democratic lineage. I have a strong Democratic lean. I consider myself to be a very loyal supporter of Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. However, I'll also be very honest about something. The campaign from the Democratic perspective is not going well. You know, the campaign of Joe Biden right now is in crisis. It's in a lot of trouble. It is a campaign that is mired in questions about his age and fitness, not just with him in the press, but also with him very much in voters. And that became crystal clear after the debate. And so I think that has been the central issue of the campaign up until Saturday's assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Wow, that is, I mean, so much has happened. Definitely a game changer on many, many levels. So thanks for explaining your Democratic background. I have to also put my cards on the table. I also, as I may have mentioned, have a Democratic background, although this conversation is strictly nonpartisan. And my only objective is to make sure our Iranian American community have greater access to public information so they can make their own informed judgments.
Exactly.
They choose. And that's the great thing about this country. In this country, we can choose who we want to vote for. In Iran, we can't.
Exactly.
So, you know, since you mentioned, you know, the Democratic Party and their concerns, valid concerns about President Biden, how do you see the party coming together? There's a lot of dissent, a lot of congressmen and senators coming out saying, you know, Joe should withdraw. At the same time, he's still got tremendous support across the country, and many people prefer, I'm just paraphrasing the mood of the country if I can, they would prefer an old, decent man to a sharp-witted con man. And I'm saying that with full knowledge that a lot of Iranian Americans support Donald Trump. I just want to say that out loud.
So I think the Democratic base, you know, is very much all in on Biden. I think they very much view it the way you put it, that Biden is an old, decent man, that, you know, he walks slowly. He doesn't speak as fluidly as he did just a few years ago. But they still see him as being the best leader of the party and of the country going forward in many ways. The problem really are with independent voters, swing voters, particularly in the Midwestern states. You know, we're talking about Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Omaha, Nebraska, which has its own electoral vote, which is now going to become very important. Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, like those kind of 6 states plus Omaha are kind of like what we call the battleground states. And you have independent swing voters who are not going to Trump, but they're not also not going to Biden. And right now they are undecided. They're not sure they're going to vote. And or they may be considering a vote for a third party candidate like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So that actually is the issue for Biden, is he has to win those voters. He cannot lose that many. Donald Trump has a very much a fixed number of voters. His floor is about 45. His ceiling is about 47. You know, he's probably going to get between 45 to 47% of the vote, no matter what he does, no matter what Joe Biden does, no matter what Democrats do, he's going to get that number. Now, you can obviously still win an election with him getting between that number. John McCain got 46%. Mitt Romney got 47. Donald Trump, in losing in 2020, got 47. So there's no reason to believe that you can't still win an election with Donald Trump having his level of support. The problem is Biden cannot lose too many voters to these third parties, to the couch. That is what happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Donald Trump got 46% of the vote and still won the election because so many of Hillary's voters went third party or did not, or simply chose not to vote.
Right. And this third party issue, and by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, America is, if it's not the biggest democracy with a two-party system, whereas all the other democracies have a coalition government, and they're forced to work with many, many different political parties that they don't agree with at all. Fundamental. But in this country, we're structurally set up to be divisive. And I just wonder what kind of future is that having, and if these third-party candidates are continuing going to infiltrate and if they continue to take votes away from Democrats, there's got to be some holistic thinking about what to do about that.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things is our system is not a parliamentary system like you have in Great Britain, and it's not even like the two-tier voting system that they have in France. I mean, what I thought was really remarkable about the French election was in a parliamentary system like the UK, Marine Le Pen, the right-wing candidate, would have become prime minister. You know, in France, they had the two-tier system where everyone does a protest vote, can vote for third parties, do whatever they want, and then in the second round, you have a strategic vote. In parliamentary systems, you form coalition governments. You know, if you have a lot of third parties that crop up, they form coalition governments. Like currently in Germany, for example, the Green Party is in coalition with the Social Democrats in Germany. And that happens quite often across Europe. And in Japan, South Korea, other places where the Green parties, like sort of the left-wing parties, form alliances with the center-left parties for coalition governments. In America, all that work is kind of done by the voters all at once on election day. Third-party voters have to make a decision to support a center-left Democratic Party. Far-right voters have to make a decision to support the Republican Party on election day themselves. They kind of have to form the coalition in their mind themselves and strategically vote that way. That is a lot of weight that is put on voters in our current system. But that is unfortunately the system that we have. And I think one of the things that I think has been missing in American cultural life for the last 40 years has been a sense of civics. We don't teach civics in schools. We don't teach civic mindedness to Americans. You know, in democracies put tremendous weight on individual citizens. You know, a badly informed citizen in a democracy is actually a bad citizen. You know, if you're a badly informed citizen, say in Iran, it makes no difference because the ruling clerics, you know, the ruling party sort of make all the decisions. You can be as badly informed as you wish, but in America, it's different. Citizens have to be very well informed, and they have to think strategically at the ballot box, because our system is simply not designed for any kind of emotional voting, any kind of protest voting.
Right. You're 100% right. And so true. We don't have a civics mandate. And to be honest, like in Israel, you know, 2 years of IDF service is required.
Yes.
In this country, unless there's a draft, you know, nobody. But forget the military service. You know, there isn't like 2 years of civics duty, you know, where you are public. I was a public servant for 25 years. I have a master's in public administration. I spent my life in public service. I love it. because I feel like as an immigrant, I owe something to this country to the extent that I can make life better for my
Right.
community, even though I can't help the people that run other than these conversations. Um, Public service is so important and so it's really life changing. It drives a lot of my thinking and my priorities. And
Hmm.
as you put it, if I never had the civics experience that I did, I
Right.
wonder, even I would have maybe studied or maybe been influenced by a lot of social media, but I wouldn't have my independent thinking and participatory democracy inclinations, as we say, without my civics predisposition.
Exactly.
So true, so true. Now, going back to the election, and thank you so much for that Civics 101. I'm a student of government. I love helping people understand how other countries do business in hopes that it will help us do better business. The old saying is every time the Democrats form a firing squad, they stand in a circle, right?
Right.
So, and I'm seeing, Donald Trump can do whatever he wants,
Hmm.
adjudicated rapist, fraud, you name it. I lost track of how many civil and criminal trials he has. Even if he
Right.
stacks the Supreme Court with his appointees and appoints federal judges that certainly move in his favor. And just a footnote, he didn't, in my view, he didn't really have that on his priority. It was Mitch McConnell that made sure that they made as many federal appointments to the judicial system as he could. And now here that group is helping him
Right.
get immunity, unheard of in American jurisprudence. But putting that aside,
Hmm.
pardon my soapbox.
Yeah.
Uh, Looking at the Democrats and how they are just beginning to, uh, I mean, there's going to be a lot of dissent going to the Democratic National Convention. There's going to be a lot of conversation. If
Right.
Biden doesn't act sooner, how do you reckon? How do you bring the party together?
Okay, well, there's probably two ways. One is kind of a radical solution, which is Biden steps aside and names Kamala Harris as vice president as his choice to be the nominee of the party. I think that would unify the party. I think the party would come together. They would unite behind Kamala Harris. And then it would be about Kamala Harris as a former prosecutor prosecuting a case against Trump for 12 weeks till the election. So I do think that that would actually be very unifying if that happened. The other is if Biden were to somehow put aside the age and fitness questions that are dogging him. If he could behave or act in such a way or do interviews, things like that, that really create a sense of public confidence in his ability to perform. There's, maybe debating Trump again is something that has been talked about. Going on Fox News has, the way Mayor Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, does, where you're really sort of boxing with the Fox News questioners, like maybe Sean Hannity. That would also be very, very helpful to Joe Biden in terms of showing people that he has the age and fitness to be president again at 82 up until the age of 86. So I think that would be the second way to unify it. So I think that those are kind of the two paths available to Democrats
Right.
and to Joe Biden. And he probably is going to want to take the latter path, but he really needs to sort of take that path as soon as possible.
Hurry up.
Yeah.
And another footnote, Mayor Buttigieg, he is something special. He thinks on his feet in such a tactical and strategic and intellectual way. I've never seen anyone be able to take him down in
Right.
an open debate anywhere in Congress, and he gets a lot of heated questions.
Right.
But to his credit, he stands up and he really pushes back. I'm sorry to see his candidacy not continue on.
Hmm.
When I did, I thought he would have been great
Well,
president.
Mayor Buttigieg is a very young man. And to put this in perspective, 16 years from now, Pete Buttigieg will be the age that Gavin Newsom is now. So,
Yeah,
he's got a lot of time,
he's got time.
yeah, he's got
He's got
decades.
time. Thank God. No,
Yeah.
he is a rising star in the Democratic Party, and I hope he continues on that path. And the party gives him space. Sometimes any party, not just Democrats, Republicans, but sometimes the party clears the field to move in their favorite son or daughter's position and bypass what maybe people think, oh, that guy's not going to get elected. Maybe we won't vote for LGBTQ. Maybe we won't vote for a woman president. We all those conversations are happening, whether they're in public or private, they happen,
Right.
and they lead to predisposition type decision making. Um, Going on that point, though, you mentioned the two ways of uniting the party, either stepping aside. just want to clarify for the listeners, Joe Biden stepping aside and Kamala Harris stepping in is the easiest transactional way
Hmm.
for another candidate to pick up where Joe Biden leaves off. It has to do with money. It has to do with
Yes.
the names on the ticket. It has to do with
Okay.
logistics. I mean, Gavin Newsom and all these other people, they're nice names to throw around, but logistically to do that with the delegate votes that they don't have, it's just impossible in 4 months.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know how it would work.
Yeah,
So keep in mind, like, everyone who voted for Joe Biden as president voted for his vice president, Kamala Harris.
right,
So there's that aspect. There's the fact that the campaign is set up financially as the Biden-Harris campaign. Kamala Harris is a co-officer with Joe Biden of that campaign, so all the money could easily be transferred to her. The message. I mean, candidates spend a lot of time trying to figure out what their message is. Kamala Harris can simply run on the Biden agenda and on the Biden message very, very seamlessly.
right,
So all of those things would be just much easier. It would be much more uniting to the party. You're not going to be leapfrogging over the first African American female vice president
right,
in history. It would. I don't know how it would work. This idea of an open primary that I hear bandied about, or a mini primary. I don't know how that would work, to be honest with you. But I hear it so much that I kind of started doubting my own judgment that this is a preposterous, ridiculous idea. But I,
right.
I simply do not know how it can work. I mean, I think I know technically how it could work, but I think that in practically, I don't know how it would work.
Right. Kamala Harris, although to be honest, she's been kept quiet for 3.5 years. You haven't seen the vice president out as much as maybe you would like to. So
Right.
the handing of the baton would have been a little bit less, would have been more seamless if you had seen her everywhere, but you don't, which is not unusual for vice presidents. You don't often see vice presidents leading big charges. Not everybody is Dick Cheney, who had walk-in rights in the White House, right? He could just walk in
Right.
anywhere and say, "I'm in charge," so she has paid a lot of deference to her boss, and she kept kind of in the background. I hear a lot of awesome discontent about the VP's office and her style of administration,
Right.
which could be a factor. But time is of the essence now. Whatever happens, it needs to happen sooner because the voters, if there is a rekindling of affection for the vice president now again as a presidential candidate. It needs to
Right.
happen, and people need to, warm up to her and see her in that light in 4 months, because Joe Biden's going to wait till the last minute. It might be too little, too late, and it won't make a difference.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly right. I think that it might be too little, too late if you wait too long for this. I think the sooner it happens, the better. Technically, the nominee of the party is not the nominee of the party until August 22nd, when Joe Biden takes the nomination of the party. But you have to think about message, you have to think about money, you have to think about logistics, you have to think about unity, you have to think about all of these factors that go into creating the nominee of a party and creating a successful campaign. I think all of that is very important to think about.
And sadly, money, I mean, I don't like to spend a lot of time on money, but you
Right.
cannot understate the power of money and access to money in this last few months. Advertising, staffing, field offices, you name it, you need money. And without money, you cannot be in front of people. Now, even though I think you mentioned the percentages of 40% or so,
Hmm.
everybody's trying to go for the undecided. Because if you're a hardcore Democrat, you're voting if they wheel in Joe Biden in a gurney, I've heard people will vote for him because he's a Democrat.
Right.
So those groupings of people are separate, but there is that 10 to 30% that meanders in elections that really decide, right? Especially in those swing
Yeah.
states, who goes where. Um,
Yeah, and it's very high in this election. Like, we have an unusually high number of undecided voters
right,
in this particular election because voters don't like the choice before them.
right,
What voters want is they want generational change.
right,
And because both candidates are very are very old. I mean, Donald
right,
Trump is 77 years old, Joe Biden is 82. because of their age and because they've been around for so long.
Right.
They're not offering the generational change that many voters would
Right.
like.
And it's funny, fascinating. As a student of government, I just absolutely admire the constitutional and the framers and the founding fathers and all the priorities they made at that time. But back then, they put an age limit, minimum age limit for who runs for president, 35.
Yes,
in the
correct.
Constitution. They didn't put an upper limit. They just put a minimum age. If they put an
Yes.
upper limit, maybe we would have had that effectual change, and it would have forced all kinds of change in American political circles. But 35 is the minimum, and there's no, you could be 105 and still run for president. And that just doesn't,
Yes.
it's not realistic.
Yeah, well, I think that during the time of the founders, I think the average life expectancy was like in the 50s.
Right.
And I think that's for adult men.
Right.
And women was much lower because so many women died in childbirth.
Right.
At the time of the founding.
And there is, from my studies of that time, and this is where we'll end, there was a certain, obviously, dignity, assumption of honor, that people that were well-meaning were going to want to serve, not necessarily people that are power hungry at any age and want to dominate. I mean, they were very aspirational and optimistic in some ways. They never really quite put some safeguards in place, like, the vice president validating the votes. I mean, they never thought that would be an uncertainty.
Right.
They didn't think, right? We'll get into the founding fathers and the framers another time. Chai Komanduri, thank you so much for joining us. We learned a lot. Please come back and help us understand what's going to be coming before the election, so we can help our community make informed decisions at the voting box.
I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Thank you.